Bruce Hyer's past professions include terrestrial ecologist, caribou biologist, bush pilot, ecotourism, entrepreneur and consultant, forester, business person, environmental analyst, and adjudicator for the Ontario Environmental Appeal Board. He was elected to federal parliament as an NDP member in 2008 and 2011, sat as an independent from April 2012 to 2013, and then joined the Green Party as their second MP and deputy leader. His reasons are they have the best platform, the best leader, and they are the only truly democratic party in Ottawa who allow him to vote primarily in the best interests of his constituents. Bruce has introduced more legislation than all the previous MPs from the Thunder Bay Superior North area combined. He is particularly focused upon electoral and parliamentary reform, along with carbon fee and dividend as a good way to reduce CO2 while also providing a minimum income for every Canadian. It's my last job of the day, and I'm really, really happy I'm here to introduce Mr. Bruce Hyer. Ladies and gentlemen, Bruce Hyer.
Jerry just gave half my speech, so this will be short. First of all, good on you. Yay for you. There are a lot of people in here who need an attaboy or an attawoman, but I'm only going to single out one. My wife, quite a while ago, came to terms with the fact that besides her, I am in love with two other women. One is Elizabeth May, and the other one is Kathy Orlando. Let's give it up for Kathy Orlando. I've got to give a 20-minute speech in 9 minutes now, so I'm going to be very punchy, very short, and I may speak in sound bites. I've learned how to do that over the last 6 years. If you think Parliament's a mess, you are absolutely right. So I've got a four-step method to fixing it. I'm going to say it real fast. My email is right to my laptop. Nobody else. Bare your souls. I have very thick skin, so if you don't agree with me, let me have it by email. Scramble, I'm going to go from easiest to hardest. Scramble seats in Parliament so we no longer sit in hockey teams. Have us randomized, change it every couple of months, and it would help a lot. The second one is I introduced legislation which went nowhere, which was to cooperate on private members' bills. And that means right now, if you introduce a private member's bill, like my climate change bill, C311, it was seen instantly as an NDP bill, and then nobody can support it or vote for it. In the previous Parliament, there were 700 some odd private members' bills. Only 4 passed in that minority government. Mine was one of them. 4 out of 700. Are you telling me that 700 bills by private members were bad? So that needs doing. The third one is in 1970, Pierre Trudeau changed the Elections Act so that party names were on the ballot. But in the fine print, it did something far worse, and it said you can't run for a national party unless your national leader signs your nomination papers. And since then, most MPs are under the thumb, sometimes under the heel, of their national leader, and they don't work for you anymore. They work for unelected party hacks in a back room. It's a real shame. And the fourth one that I think you all know we need, it's the hardest one to get, but if we don't get there, I don't know what we're going to do, and that's proportional representation. You folks, as I've already said, I'm going to say it again, and then I'll say it at the end so you continue to like me, are smart, kind, hardworking, dedicated. Those are all fine qualities, except one I'm not sure about. Canadians in general, and you guys, I'm finding, are a little too nice. You're a little too kind. Training politicians, here's my simple formula for training politicians. For those of you who know how our brain works, we have 3 brains, roughly. Our forebrain is the one that's logical, strategic, thinks into the future, understands our place in the cosmos to some extent. And our rear brain, the back part of our brain, is our mammalian brain. That's the emotional brain. Love, rage, that kind of stuff, maternal instinct. And then way down at the stem, there's a really tiny part of our brain, the reptilian brain. Which one do you think politicians operate in? So, a couple metaphors here. Reptiles operate in their reptilian brain, and they move toward pleasure, and they move away from pain. You've been trying the pleasure route with the politicians. Well, keep it up, but at least some of you learn how to be bad cops and put some more pressure on the three main parties. As I think you know, there's only one party that's endorsing carbon fee and dividend. Which party is that? Yes? Okay. And I'm in the process right now of rewriting Vision Green. Vision Green is our platform. It was good, but it doesn't have carbon fee and dividend in it, so I'm rewriting it. My email is simple. I can even remember it. It's bruce@brucehyer.ca. You have to know how to spell Hyer, H-Y-E-R. bruce@brucehyer.ca. Read Vision Green, all 146 pages of it, or at least the parts that interest you, and then send me your ideas on how to make it better. I really would appreciate that, because rewriting it's a pretty big task. Another metaphor is donkey. I've been involved in environmental action for 50 years, roughly, and long ago I used the donkey technique. When you're dealing with donkeys that aren't all that bright, and they're stubborn, and they do what they want to do, and they don't like to change direction or behavior. Sorry about this metaphor, it's a little violent. The Greens are supposed to be against violence. You hit them right between the eyes with a 2x4. It's the 2x4 technique. You hit them over the head with a 2x4. And then after you have their attention, then you use the sugar cubes, the carrots, whatever metaphor you. But some of you have to become bad cops. You just have to do it. And the last metaphor is one I used on the Prime Minister one day in the House. I said, you know, training Prime Ministers is a lot like training puppies. When they're bad, you got to put them in the doghouse. And if they're good, then you give them a cookie. I want to talk about carbon fee and dividend quickly. I'm more and more now calling it carbon dividend. This is the good job part of the role. Emphasize the dividend. As Stuart Elgee pointed out, and I think a couple of the people here pointed out, emphasize the dividend. The increase in the price of food and gas and a bunch of things with the carbon fee, they'll get over that. People get used to it and get over it in a few months. But when 4 times a year they get that check in the mail from Finance Minister Bruce Hyer and the coalition government, it's going to be very popular. Have you noticed how well it's worked for Harper with his so-called child care, substitute for real child care, the check in the mail, $100 a month per kid under 6 years old? Very popular. I just want to, you have to persuade, it's good that you've got us Greens on side. After the next election, we're going to have a minority government. It's going to be a Trudeau government, trust me. But he's going to be a couple of seats short of a majority. And Greens are going to get 8-10 seats, mostly in BC. I hope mine's one of them. Otherwise, I go back to flying float planes and going fishing and canoeing and have more fun, frankly. But despite that, I want to be reelected. So when that happens, you need to have one of the 3 big parties come on side. I think you understand that. You have to persuade one of the parties. But you got to use some bad cop stuff, not just good cop stuff. The Conservatives should like this because it's market-driven. And these are points that I think you should use when you do your lobbying. It's market-driven. The government won't be picking winners and losers. The marketplace will. There'll be no new bureaucracy. You can use the Canada Revenue Agency. It's already got the database that enhances slightly, and it sends these checks to every Canadian tax filer, and we just have to add the poverty-stricken people to the database. That's all. No dollars go to government. And my vision, I think we have to hang tough on this, not a penny goes to government. I know it'd be nice, it's tempting to give it to infrastructure, but the marketplace will take care of that, or find another way to fund the infrastructure, like increasing the other taxes to corporations from the lowest in the Western world. And the last one to appeal to conservatives, and I'm sorry if this one sounds bizarre, but I've been saying to conservatives, you know, if you go with carbon fee and dividend, you're going to win the next election. The biggest single obstacle to you winning the next election is your dinosaur Neanderthalic ways on pricing carbon. And here's a way that works for you, and it puts money in Canadians' pockets, and they'll love it. So you may be nervous about that one, but I'd use it as a selling point. The obstacle to that is the conservatives would actually have to admit that they've been wrong for a decade or two or three. NDP. I've been in the NDP for a decade, and one of the reasons I left the NDP for two reasons. One was issues over democracy that I won't go into today. I think you know what they were. But the other one is I've been battling with them for a decade against cap and trade. You've got to attack cap and trade. So the only thing I don't agree with that I've heard today, I actually read it in your little brochure today, which is a great little brochure. It says, don't criticize cap and trade. I don't agree. Beat them up on cap and trade. And I'll tell you why. They don't understand it. They really don't. They don't really even know how it works, actually. And I do know how it works, and I know it doesn't work very well. But they're not going to abandon it unless you cause them pain. So back to the reptilian brain, move toward pleasure, move away from pain. You've got to give them pain on this cap and trade thing. And the reason that they're so fixed on cap and trade, besides having said so for a decade, they did this to be different than Stéphane Dion with his carbon tax. Now, the reason they were against the carbon tax, and it was valid, is it would be regressive and it would hurt poor people. Well, fee and dividend, carbon dividend turns that around. It's actually going to favor poor people. It gives us a small, but it could be growing, guaranteed annual income, which I've believed in for decades. So I've always wondered how we're going to pay for it. Well, now we know how we're going to pay for it. And the liberals are afraid of that dirty four-letter word, T-A-X-X. And they believe that Stéphane Dion was crushed because of the carbon tax. I don't believe that, but they do believe that. So Justin, as you know, keeps saying we need to price carbon, but you've got to get him to go further. Which, come on, you got to pick one, Justin. Pick one and persuade him. I hope you can persuade him. So almost done here. Reward whichever parties endorse a carbon fee and dividend. So if it's only the Greens, at some point, you know, politics, at some point you got to get a little political here and start saying, well, maybe we should all vote Green. They're the only ones that support carbon fee and dividend, and encourage the others to steal the idea. If one of the other parties steals this idea from you, and apparently from us, I'll be happy to praise them till the cows come home, maybe even form a coalition government with them. Tuesday morning, some of you are meeting with the NDP over breakfast. A few of you play bad cop and beat them up on cap and trade, and make it clear that you're going to say, do not vote NDP if they're going to say stuck on cap and trade. Sorry if that disagrees with some people here, but I feel strongly about it. You have an opportunity, and that's with the provinces, and I'm going to focus particularly on Quebec and Ontario. As we know, Kathleen Wynne is smarter and more caring than the average premier. And we got a pretty good premier apparently in Quebec as well. And they've just come to this meeting of the minds philosophically. Now is the window of opportunity to get both Ontario and Quebec on side with fee and dividend. The last thing I want to say is I've always been fascinated by chaos theory. The world is in chaos, politically, socially, and economically, environmentally, in our personal lives. The world's a mess, right? Not just Parliament, but the whole world. Well, that's the bad news. The good news is I truly believe that when systems are in chaos, that small, persistent pats in the right direction can have inordinate effect. I really believe that a few dedicated people, and here you are, can change the system. I really believe that, or I'd be back in the wilderness eating moose and flying float planes. So I want to just end by thanking you so much. You guys are fantastic. I enjoy you individually and collectively. And my bottom line that I say in my writing, but it's true with you too. I work for you. I will help you in every possible way that I can on this. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Okay, obviously the schedule changed. It wasn't a promise that it would be that way. So I think we need to take 15 minutes to break. For those who are not lobbying tomorrow, it's okay if you leave now. For those of you who are lobbying tomorrow, we wanted you to stay behind, and we'll do a little bit of housekeeping. I think I'm going to give closing statements right now. I'm really scared because next year the conference has to be better. You are amazing, and Bruce was amazing, and Bill was amazing, and Yannick was amazing, and all the helpers. I better stop. But yeah, just Jerry's already gone. Yeah, so I'll give better closing statements, but I wanted to say that right now where everybody was in the room. So 10 minutes. Now, we got a treat for you here. We have Hawaiian cheddar and pepper sandwiches on the left side, and we have goat cheese, tomato, and walnut cucumbers on the right side. So just 10 minutes, and then we're going to do some housekeeping for tomorrow. And for those of you who are leaving right now, can you leave your name tags? Because that'll save me $50 next year. Thank you. So 10 minutes. Thank you so much. Uh-oh.
No, okay, Kathy. Kathy, on behalf of the board and everybody here, we are so grateful for the incredible work that you have put into this conference, but also CCL throughout the year. Thank you so much for building this, helping to build this incredible organization. Thank you for your extraordinary skills in organizing and putting together this really, really important conference. And not only that, but she was the one who helped launch us into conference mode last year, which is, it's a pretty incredible thing to do. So on behalf of all of us, thank you, thank you, thank you for everything that you do.
So we figured she needed a little bit of stress busting, so we've got some Starbucks gift certificate, we've got some wine, and we've got a stress ball that she can squeeze and throw at the computer.
Thank you. Thank you. Then, thank you so much. Then I just have to say a quick closing statement. I made a promise to my baby in 2007. I was going to fight with everything I had. So thank you for helping me. Love you.
And thank you all for watching. That's the end of our broadcast, and sorry for all the technical glitches. It was just one guy running all the AV equipment, it was our first time doing anything on this scale. We hope that we'll do better next year. Hope you have a good evening.